In the quiet, tree-lined suburbs of Alexandria, Virginia, the De La Roche family seemed to have it all. Bernard, a successful toxicologist, and his wife, Veronique, a respected daycare owner, lived in a beautiful home with their young son. To their neighbors, they were the picture of a happy, thriving family. But behind the closed doors of their seemingly perfect life, a dark and complex web of secrets, resentments, and psychological turmoil was unraveling, piece by agonizing piece. This is the story of how a picture-perfect family descended into a nightmare, culminating in a tragedy that would leave a community in shock and a nation asking how something so horrific could happen. The story begins not in the sterile environment of a courtroom, but in the intimate, often deceptive, space of a family home. Bernard de la Roche was a man of science, meticulous and driven. His work was his world. Veronique, on the other hand, was deeply embedded in the world of children and caregiving. Their marriage from the outside looked like a stable partnership, but friends and family would later recall a growing distance between them, a coldness that had crept into their interactions. Veronique had reportedly been feeling overwhelmed, isolated, and unheard. She was struggling, but the true depth of her despair remained hidden, simmering just beneath the surface of their domestic life. Small cracks began to appear in the facade. There were arguments overheard by neighbors that hinted at a deep-seated unhappiness. Bernard was often away, consumed by his career, leaving Veronique to manage the household and their son alone. The pressures mounted. Financial strain, professional jealousy, and a profound sense of personal failure began to weigh heavily on Veronique. She had once been a promising student herself, but her career had taken a back seat to her husband's. A quiet resentment grew, festering in the silence that filled their home when Bernard was away. It's a classic tale of unspoken expectations and a communication breakdown that turns toxic. The family home, meant to be a sanctuary, was slowly becoming a pressure cooker. The psychological landscape of this tragedy is where the true horror lies. Veronique wasn't just unhappy. She was spiraling. Friends noticed changes in her behavior. She became more withdrawn, her usual bright demeanor replaced by a palpable sadness. She confessed to a friend that she felt trapped, that her life hadn't turned out the way she'd envisioned. These are classic warning signs, but in the busy rhythm of suburban life, they were easily missed or dismissed as a passing phase. It is a chilling reminder of how easy it is to overlook the silent battles being fought by those closest to us. Her internal world was becoming a labyrinth of dark thoughts, a place where reality and delusion were beginning to blur. Then came the event that pushed the family over the edge. Bernard was offered a prestigious position that would require the family to relocate, uprooting the life they had built. For Bernard, it was a triumph, the culmination of years of hard work. But for Veronique, it was the final straw. The move represented a complete loss of her own identity, her support network, and the small world she had carved out for herself. The prospect of starting over in a new place, where she would be even more isolated, was unbearable. The conflict reached a fever pitch. The home was no longer a stage for silent resentment, but for open, bitter warfare. The days leading up to the tragedy were thick with an unspoken dread. The arguments escalated. Veronique's behavior became more erratic. She made a series of desperate calls to family and friends, her voice laced with a panic that, in hindsight, was a clear cry for help. She spoke of feeling hopeless, of not seeing a way out. but no one could have predicted the catastrophic turn her despair would take. The human mind is a fragile thing, and under immense, unrelenting pressure, it can break in the most terrifying ways. This wasn't a sudden snap. It was a slow, agonizing descent into a psychological abyss. On a cold November morning, the idyllic image of the de la Roche family was shattered forever. Police were called to the home to perform a welfare check after Bernard failed to show up for work. What they discovered inside was a scene of unimaginable horror. The details are grim, a testament to a mind pushed beyond its limits. Veronique had taken the life of her husband and their son before taking her own. The investigation that followed would peel back the layers of their lives, revealing the deep-seated psychological wounds that had led to this final, devastating act. The crime scene itself told a story not just of violence, but of profound, tragic despair. In the aftermath, the community was left reeling. How could this have happened? They were the perfect family. The question echoed in newspaper headlines and hushed conversations. The case became a chilling study in the psychology of family annihilation, a rare but horrific phenomenon where one family member kills the entire family. Experts point to a complex mix of factors: narcissistic rage, a deep sense of failure, and a distorted form of altruism, where the killer believes they are sparing their family from a life of perceived suffering. In Veronique's mind, warped by depression and desperation, this may have seemed like the only escape from a pain that had become all-consuming. The letters and diaries Veronique left behind offered a haunting glimpse into her fractured psyche. They were filled with expressions of love for her son, but also with rage towards her husband and a profound sense of victimhood. She felt she had sacrificed everything and received nothing in return. Her writings paint a portrait of a woman who felt utterly powerless, and in a final, twisted act of control, she chose to destroy the very life she had helped create. It's a disturbing paradox, an act of immense violence born from a feeling of complete powerlessness. This tragedy is not just a true crime story. It's a profound and heartbreaking cautionary tale. It underscores the critical importance of mental health awareness and the need for open, honest communication within families. It shows how easily cries for help can be missed and how the stigma surrounding mental illness can prevent people from seeking the support they desperately need. The pressure to maintain an image of perfection, to live up to societal expectations, can create an environment where silent suffering flourishes. The de la Roche family wasn't destroyed by an external monster. They were consumed by a darkness that grew from within. If you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of hopelessness or despair, please know that there is help available. You are not alone. You can connect with people who can support you by calling or texting 988 in the United States and Canada, or by calling 111 in the United Kingdom. These services are free, confidential, and available 24/7. Reaching out is a sign of strength. The story of the de la Roche family is a tragedy, but our hope is that by understanding it, we can learn to see the warning signs and prevent such a devastating loss from happening again. Thank you for watching.